This is the second in a series of videos I'm doing to compare various substrates, bioactive substrates. I just wanted to show you before we start, these are some weary peppers from Guyana. I started these from seed about 6 weeks ago. And I just wanted to make sure you understood that I can grow things. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to see how the claims stack up. The manufacturers or the resellers of these products say that they're wonderful for vivariums. They're full of nutrient that is, they're designed to promote life, plant growth. So we want to see how their claims hold up. Now, in the first video we did, we weighed them all and we looked at them at a cost per pound. They were all pretty similar, actually, in the cost. And they were all pretty darn expensive. The exception, of course, was Miracle-gro, which came out to like 50 cents a pound, I think. These were all, I don't know, some multiple of that, especially delivered. This is Josh's frogs. And the ingredient said slate. And I thought, well, that's weird, isn't it? That's interesting. But sure enough, it has got a lot of slate in it. I'm not sure why. I guess drainage in general, and they didn't want to use perlite because people think perlite is poison or something. It isn't, but anyway, the rest of the ingredients for Josh's frogs, cut up sphagnum, that's the light colored stuff. Peat is the dark brown stuff, and then there is some forest byproduct. It's basically bark, and the bark is where they bring in the pine trees, they strip the bark off, grind it up, turn the trees into 2x4s. This is the Biodudes, and this one was really surprising to me. I can't tell exactly what this is, but I think it's just peat, and it's just got these big hunks of wood in it. I just don't understand this at all. This was, maybe we'll see. Maybe it grows stuff really well, but I was really shocked to see the quality of this stuff. I would not use it. This is Houston frogs, and it's similar to Josh's frogs. You can see the brown bark in it. You can see the light-colored sphagnum. You can see the peat. It's more finely processed. Maybe it seems to have some little clay pellets in it. Very small. You can see very small ground up clay. So that's, it's more or less the same. They do say that they have microorganisms and some beneficial fungi. We'll see how important that is to the plants, right? This is Miracle-gro. It has, you can look at the ingredients, it has sort of the same thing. It has ground sphagnum, it has peat, it has bark, forest byproduct, which is, again, bark. It's more finely processed. It's ground up better. And it has perlite, which is a type of rock, actually an obsidian, I've recently learned, that's superheated, and it expands under those high temperatures. This also has a starter dose of fertilizer in it that will last maybe a week or 10 days. These apparently don't have fertilizer in them, but we'll see. Okay, all right. We want to compare these four substrates as fairly as we can, and what we want to compare about them is how well they support plant life, because that's what substrates do in a vivarium. So I was trying to think of the best way to do that, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting each of them in a gallon bag and then adding equal amounts of distilled water into each one of the bags. Okay, we have our 4 samples here, and to each one, I'm going to open up, these are 2 quarts by volume, not by weight, and to each one I'm going to add 1 quart of distilled water. And then we're going to drain the extra water off of them and see how much we have. Okay, so we added a quart of water to each bag, and now what I want to do is I'm going to shake it up a little bit, because all of these substrates are hydrophobic, meaning they repel water once they dry down, which is why they put wetting agents in the commercial potting mix. So I put the water in here. I'm going to shake it back and forth, make sure it's evenly distributed. And then I'm going to set them down flat and give them 1 hour to absorb all the water. All right, I wanted to drain the excess water off of these. You can see that I put in more water than they can absorb. So what I'm going to do is just trim the very tip of the corners off and just hold the bag up over the jar for 60 seconds. Each one of them, I've got a timer going, and I'm going to do 60 seconds for each one. And start. So we're going to hold this for 60 seconds and let that much of this water drain off. So we've drained each of these for 1 minute. And on the left we have Miracle-gro. This is Houston frogs, and this is Josh's, no, this is BioDude, and then this is Josh's frogs, substrate mix. And you can see that the one that drained the most was Houston frogs, by quite a bit. And I'm saying that BioDudes was second, and Josh's frog and Miracle-gro were probably about equal. Now the question is, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean for bioactive vivariums, right? There's a lot of implications in something as simple as how fast the substrate drains. So let me explain what I'm going to do here with this experiment. I've got 2 sets of pots here, and I'm going to put the substrate in 1 pot on each set. The reason for that is that this set will receive supplemental fertilizer, and I'm just using, I'll show it to you, just Miracle-gro fertilizer. And this set will not receive any additional fertilizer. The reason I'm doing that is because I have to be honest with you, some of these substrates don't look like they'll support plant life. And I don't want to run through this experiment and just have these plants germinate and then die. And I'm afraid that might be the case with a number of them. So I think what we'll have this as a supplement, as a backup, where they get chemical fertilizer, and we'll see that if that kills them or if that helps them grow. Okay, so I'm trying to do this as fairly as I can. This is the BioDude and the plus. That means that this one will receive the fertilizer. The BioDude stuff, I got to tell you, it's curious. I mean, I don't know if I can show it to you here, but it is basically, it's peat with branches in it. It's very interesting stuff. I mean, I don't want to be prejudiced against anything, but this looks like crap. It really does. Maybe it'll perform really good, right? And I'll have to eat my words, but it looks like crap. And just based on the way it looks, look at these hunks of wood in it. I wouldn't put it in my vivarium. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put tomato seeds on the surface of each one of these, and I'm going to cover them with about 1/4 of an inch of vermiculite. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want there to be sort of a level playing field throughout these. I don't want one to have a big clump of something on top of it that is inhibiting its germination. So we're just going to put as many seeds as I can out of this packet. If I can do 3 per pot or 5 per pot, whatever, and cover the whole top of the pot with vermiculite, like I said, between 1/4 and 1/2 an inch. And then that way they all have an even playing field to start from. So these are little, patio tomatoes that you can grow in pots. It looks like we have enough seeds to put, 4 or 5 at least in each of these pots. I was able to get about 5 per pot. By the way, we do this for a lot of delicate seeds. We cover them like this, like carrots. The idea is we want to keep the moisture in, but we don't want anything. This vermiculite is so lightweight that anything that germinates just pushes right through it without any trouble. That's why we're using vermiculite. So we have our experiment here. Again, we're divided in two. We've got it on a heat mat, just a regular horticultural heat mat. It'll keep it around 85 to 80 or to 95, which is where we want to germinate tomato seeds. And we're dividing them into two just to sort of reiterate. These guys who sell these products oftentimes market them as being, incredibly, miraculously wonderful and all that for your plants. So I wanted a group that simply isolated their product from everything else. We're using only distilled water. I'm not sure that what they're saying is exactly accurate. And so, just as a backup, I'm going to have a set with all of their substrates, but I'm going to be adding fertilizer as recommended. Now, when a plant first germinates, it has all of the nutrients it needs in its seed, in the seed itself. That'll be converted, and used by the plant. But as soon as those first leaves, those seed leaves, start to give way to the true leaves, then it needs nutrient. And at that point, we're going to start, I'm guessing, that's when we're going to start fertilizing this side, and we'll fertilize them with half-strength Miracle-gro off-the-shelf conventional fertilizer, and I'll talk more about why we use that product. And these we will leave with just the miraculous substrate that they are, unfettered by chemical intrusions, and we'll see how they compare.